welcome to the G3 Pulse podcast. Our guests today, we've got Alex Pratt and Stuart Hunter from Clarion Gaming, the guys who organised the ice show in London. Alex, Stuart, welcome to the podcast.
Nice to see you again.
Hey, Lewis. Good to be here.
Hi, guys. Hiya. Yeah, we met briefly at G2E a little bit recently, and obviously we've been meeting up across the year. You've been doing symposiums, you've been at the ECA forums, and you've been kind of busy right across before and after ice as well. The last time we had a chat was nearly a year ago. But a lot of water under the bridge since then, a lot of history. But we're here today to talk about ice 2023. So with what I wanted to ask, because our audience, we've got a mixed range of sports betting online, but land-based, and land-based really didn't kind of turn up in the big numbers for April. And there's lots of reasons that we've covered in the past about that, but they won't have actually been to a show since 2020. And I wanted to find out from you guys what are they going to find that's similar and familiar about ice next year, and what are they going to kind of walk onto the floor? It's going to be kind of the same before we get onto the differences.
Yeah, I'll cover that one, Lewis. I think, as you said, the 2022 event that we held in April this year was good for lots of reasons, but totally recognise it's not a full ice. But so we're excited really that February next year, 23, is going to return to its full component parts, all the sectors, all geographies represented, including all the land-based. So that's really exciting, and that's been in place for many months. Actually, it was quite quickly after the April show that we moved on and started planning for 23. So we've been working with all of those brands all the way through it, really, in terms of gearing up really for what will be quite a momentous show in February. So talking about ice in general, I guess that the fabric, the DNA of ice will be very familiar to everyone, just on a larger scale again. And as you said, it would be 3 years since we ran the 2020 edition. So it will be quite a moment, I think. There's obviously a lot that's happened in terms of how we operate and how we focus on connectivity and bringing those buyers and sellers and industry together. So I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little while. But it's a big headline, really. We're looking forward to bringing everyone back together, full size, full stretch, and hope that'll be a memorable experience.
Okay, well, it's kind of, you've got one under your belts, but this still feels like it's a new team coming in. And I want to kind of ask what from your views is going to be different about the show, and any of the key features that you can share with us at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we are largely a new team, obviously, not necessarily to Clarion, but certainly probably to the ice brand. But we've still got, strong ties and relationships with the extended team that have been working with the ice brand for many years, in addition to our long set of consultants and being close to the market. So there's a full team effort on this one, and it obviously has been over the last 18 months. So quite a lot of the new things that we implemented in 2022, things like the Pillar Hall Casino, which was a dedicated zone for the land-based industry, things like our hosted buying program, and expansion of our consumer protection zone, etc. They're all things that we've grabbed hold of. We wanted to make some big steps forward in terms of investing in those. So a lot of those things have kind of been brought back and evolved and enhanced again for the 23 show. I guess another one which was brand new to 2020 was our Ice 365 Studio, which was really kind of our attempt at creating that editorial heartbeat all the way throughout the show, which we hadn't done before. So that's back, and that gives a kind of running commentary all the way through the show, but also broadcasts content out to attendees that kind of can pick up the content on a kind of post-show basis as well as picking it up if you're not at the show. So there's lots of things in there. Obviously, the esports evolution continues. Really exciting to see that grow and develop. And I think there's lots of things that we've kind of initiated in 22 that we're growing and developing, and we've learned from, I guess, since April. Okay. So yeah, lots of exciting new things and lots of existing things that will be done better.
Okay, Alex, you mentioned before the broadcast about the idea that a strong G2E, stronger shows around the ice actually are beneficial as well. You sent a press release congratulating G2E about the October show, how busy it was, how well put together it was. Do you see that as being a bellwether for ice, having shows around being kind of strong and kind of popular events as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Stuart's statement, but I 100% agree with it. And I think I think for a number of reasons it's important. One, from just a live event perspective, in terms of the channel, it just shows and reinforces that live has a place.
Okay.
And I think certainly for this sector where we do like to come together and we do like to shake hands, but also touch and feel the product. And I think that G2E, it's just saying to you, it was brilliant. I thought it was a really good show. Lots of people there. And I think that really set the message that live works, but also showed that the industry's back. Actually, we've come through this 3 years of various different variants and other challenges, and we're back and we're ready to buy. And I think that's the one thing I heard on that show floor, is particularly from the Europeans, is that they haven't bought new machines from a show in years, and actually they cannot wait to get to ICE. And I think we were having drinks with the guys from the ECA, and they're saying actually the volume of the team they're going to send this year will be bigger because they've just got so much to do. And I think if it had been a bad show, I think, it wouldn't be good, because then it just sows negativity across the market and across the events themselves. So, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean, you've just opened up straight after the G2E show the ICE registration, and I know you like your stats, Alex. So, what can you share about that up until this point? I know it's really just opened up, but your expected visitor figures and really about the bookings for the exhibition space as well. How does this compare to previous years at this point?
I mean, I do love my data, but I have not logged into that dashboard in the last 24 hours. So I'll let Stu, because I'm sure he's looked at it avidly every 10 minutes. I can release hot news that it's looking good.
Okay, excellent. Sure, fill in a few more details there, then, please.
Yeah, look, it's about this time of year where it's sort of the marketing team's finger is constantly on refresh, so always sort of seeing what's happening. And as you said, we went live for registration last week. Look, it's probably it is too early to tell kind of what that would indicate. I think we've had about 1,000 registrations already within the first week, which I can tell you is certainly at the upper end of what we would expect, which is good. I guess something to share that's actually tangible is what we're seeing that we probably didn't see in April when we went live with registration, is much more of a diverse split of attendants that are selecting their kind of prime function of being land-based or online or purely online. We're seeing much more of a healthy split there, which is really, really exciting. I guess that's what we expected and hoped for, and it's much more in line with the 2020 version of ICE than versus the 2022 version of ICE. So that's a really good sign. And similarly, from a geographical perspective as well, we're seeing that split. We saw a bit of that split when we went live for the 2022 show, but obviously we remember that we had Omicron in the middle of that, so we almost kind of parked that data pre-Christmas and almost started again in kind of February time with this is what the proposition is. So it was not really a fair test, but certainly in terms of job type, seniority and geographical split, it's all looking really exciting. And I guess the punchline is we are absolutely targeting to deliver a biggest ever attendance. 35,000 was the attendance roughly for 2020, so we are looking to exceed that. How far past we go that, it's a little bit too early to tell.
Okay, and in terms of booked floor space, are we where are you at in terms of capacity? In terms of, obviously 2022 this year was down, and logically so in terms of the land-based kind of supply side. But are we back to 2020, 2019 kind of levels at this point?
Yeah, we are. I think we're probably going to be a little bit more than 2020, to be honest with you, and that is also when you take in consideration that the 2020 floor plan, and I'll try not to get too technical now, actually we've made a huge amount of changes to that layout, just in terms of making it more uniform, actually improving the visitor flow. There was lots of sort of technical and operational things that we tasked ourselves with. And actually, weirdly, one of the benefits of running a smaller show in April this year allowed us to execute that a little bit easier than if we'd have gone straight into a full-size ICE. So we learned a lot from that. We tried some new things out. So in terms of actual square meters, we don't like talking about square meters in the exhibition industry because it's kind of the lowest of intellectual property of exhibitions. But what we talk about is actually the volume of brands, the space that they're taking, the feature space that we're creating. So all in all, it will be the biggest, or it is currently the biggest, subject to the last remaining stands, which interest levels show we will definitely fill those. So it'll be the biggest ever.
And you mentioned about the geographical spread of the visitors. Is the kind of spread of the sectors kind of even, or are we seeing kind of a greater surge? You mentioned esports before, other companies coming in. Have you seen kind of bumps in certain areas rather than other ones? Or is it an even spread of different sectors?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I think we always used to, I guess if you look at the two major sectors, which is land-based and online, we would always strategically put ourselves in a position prior years to ensuring that we were 50-50. That was always
Okay.
our kind of watermark, just to make sure that we offered the industry that very kind of varied split of product offering. I guess because quite a lot of those land-based companies now operate in online as well, it's a little bit harder to kind of distinguish. But if you look at the floor plan, and absolutely, I welcome anyone to jump on the website and you can download the latest floor plan so all your listeners can see for themselves. You'll see that split of those big land-based companies is absolutely a carbon footprint in many respects to what it was in 20 and 19. So we are seeing a very even split. And in fact, we challenge ourselves with that to make sure that product mix is right. And a lot of that is straight from our customer research that we do post-show and throughout the year, like the symposiums that you mentioned before, making sure that actually what those buying requirements are, that we match those on the show floor with our product mix.
The only thing I'd add to that is we've definitely seen, like I think everyone, probably you in advertisers as well, we've seen a bigger surge around sports betting.
Yeah.
And to get into that sports betting area in ice is difficult now because it's pretty rammed. And I think the other part, which is quite intentional, is to try and look for, and not a segment or a sector, but try and look for more new or innovative exhibitors and trying to find ways to get them, and not just through pitch ice, but through these last remaining stands. Traditionally, they would be sold to whoever phones up, whereas we're trying to hunt out that new or that something that's different. And just talking to the buyers, it's that Thursday they like to walk the floor and say, wow, like I found this, and it's this random thing in the corner of ice, but actually it's going to make a massive difference. And I think that's often when I speak to them, that's one of their main reasons for coming to the show. So we're trying to fill that floor with a few more surprises.
Okay, that's a good point, because actually that's probably not been the application of ice as much as we've done that now in terms of really better understanding what those kind of new products and services are. And I guess a couple of areas that we've kind of really tasking the team with securing new products under is things like poker, things like social gaming. So there's new products that are coming in that way, which Alex talked about, which I think will kind of help that I guess level of innovation that people are going to see next year.
I suppose the difference between filling a show with, as you say, square footage and meterage, which you don't want to use as a term, or actually with gaming companies and gaming innovation, and actually being a gaming focused event, which actually goes looking for those innovations as well, but also knows what you're looking for too. There's a bit of that kind of expertise in this area too.
Yeah, and it is cool. It's a marketplace. Like when you go into a shopping centre, you don't want it to be full of Poundlands, although I do love a Poundland, but Poundlands throughout every shop. You want the odd gadget shop as well.
Yeah. In which case you mentioned the symposiums and how many you've conducted. I just wonder what in terms of this is the first time this has happened, the first time you've actually put these into this sector. I'm guessing that you've done these in other sectors in which Clarion's involved, but what specific feedback are you getting, and what have you gleaned from that, and have you been able to instigate those in terms of changes to the show as well?
Yeah, the symposium, although to be fair, when Stuart launched the symposium, I had to message him and ask him what the hell a symposium is.
Too Greek, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Now it's just a really posh version of a conference. But they're not actually new. In their prior form, there are ampersand open space sessions, but just with a really fancy name now, and actually for the future. But we're looking to relaunch ampersand for next year. But that's kind of a side note. But I guess for us, it allows us to keep in touch with the industry in terms of what's really front of mind, whether that's opportunities they're looking to take advantage of or threats that actually they need to defend against. And so much comes out of that open space format because the agenda is designed by the attendees, not us, and then it's just purely discussion based. So things like, which to be honest, I think it's probably a pain point globally across all businesses, is around talent acquisition, retention. Certainly something that was happening at the ECA forum not forum, but the dealer championships in Monaco.
And the forum as well. Yeah, that carried on as well right the way through the year.
Yeah, and then things like expanding market expansion, particularly around sports betting, but against versus profitability when you've got an recession coming in. Always big stuff around payment processing and that better experience within the casino. So lots and lots of different things come out of those sessions. And I guess, then it's what do we do with that? And so some of that is, can we find exhibitors that can solve those solutions and bring them to the show?
Okay.
Can we find visitors that can add value to those problems, or can we look at it on the conference stream? So we'll try and then change and I guess sculpt the show in a different way as best we can, and even down to like our marketing messages in terms of actually how we communicate. And then actually it also helps create content for the digital guys on Ice 365 to help just build that story and that narrative that then flows through into the show, where on the show floor we can maybe solve those problems, or at least reduce them or take advantage of those opportunities as a community.
Okay, well, you've got the symposiums, but you also got the, as you mentioned earlier, the hosted buyer program. You've got focus group program. You've got a stakeholder engagement program. Aside from all the kind of stationary invites that you're sending out for all these programs, and what's all this feeding back into, and how is this improving the show?
Yeah, I think, well, as Alex said, it actually kind of gives us that opportunity to test what we're doing, to ensure that those products and services that we're offering either match those pain points or those opportunities. And if they don't, as Alex mentioned, we go out and secure those new products and services, and then right through to the kind of the on-site experience, right through to the content that we produce and the messaging, as you mentioned. So that all does feed in. I think it is really at the basis of kind of how we approach live events at Clarion. It's always kind of that consumer centricity has been really at the heart of any major decisions, and that goes through some small decisions right through to kind of what type of features and experiences we're going to put on, or even just the kind of the types of messaging, right through to the big decisions, which are kind of some of the more strategic ones. So having that constant dialogue with our industry is totally crucial. ICE couldn't exist or exist successfully without it. And Alex and I, we've probably grabbed hold of that really as a Clarion kind of mantra and taken it, certainly a step further. And I think this period over the last couple of years, and actually, as you said at the beginning, with a new management team coming in, never has it been more important for us to get under the skin of it, really, just to make sure we're making the right decisions for the best of the industry.
So on that theme, I mean, with kind of 3 months out from the show now, you've got a November iGaming symposium coming up. Are you able to actually implement the change? You take on feedback from that symposium. Are you still making the changes and fairly biggish possible changes to the actual show? Is that still on, or is this something you're kind of futuring into the next 2024?
It's a bit of both, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of sense checking that we'll do with the industry, but there's almost we have these kind of these moments in time, these symposiums where everyone gets together, but the conversation through our editorial team, through our commercial team, it's always ongoing. We have weekly within the team, weekly kind of industry updates, which kind of feed all this information. So it's not as if we don't, we sort of have these dry periods and then we come together. This is just with the symposium an opportunity for that face-to-face connection, which adds a bit of color to some of the themes that we're seeing. But absolutely, when we have that, which will probably be the, I think, first week of December now rather than end of November. Okay. But even with that, there's an element of actually our assumptions based on the research and the conversations we've had over the last few months still accurate? If they are, great, then we've got content, messaging, and product right. If they're not, then we tweak. And if there's something that's come up that we didn't know about, then great. We've got a couple of months to really grab hold of it and think, actually, how can we facilitate that debate or that problem, that solution, or that opportunity on site at ICE? And absolutely, as I said before, then take it forward. What's next? What's coming down the track that we can sort of start to think about for 24 onwards?
Okay. One of the things we saw back in April for the show was that the affiliate side came together with ICE, and then they're kind of splitting apart again for this next one. How do you kind of balance those two? Are they complementary? Do they compete against each other? And how is that kind of bringing together and separation? Has that worked? Did it work when they were combined, or did they work better separately?
Yeah, and I obviously, I started those affiliate events and backed it on ICE, first at the annoyance of Kate, and then I think she was happy. And I think she was happy because actually it is complementary.
Okay.
And I think that the affiliate market has changed so much over the last 10 years anyway. And there's been a natural convergence probably for the last 5-6 years of suppliers, operators, and affiliates where their relationships interlink, or where they are also an affiliate and also an operator and vice versa.
Okay.
Has been a continuous process. So I think they are complementary. I think at the core of this industry, our customer is the player. That's the lifeblood. That's how we all survive and are able to have podcasts and keep our houses warm despite costs going up. And those affiliates are major parts of that acquisition channel. So I think having them as part of ICE is really important. Should it run on the same 2 days? Look, that is a debate I've had with myself for 4 or 5 years now. On the one hand, absolutely. On the other hand, not, because the operator, when they visit ICE, and particularly those small to medium ones where they haven't got gigantic teams, when they visit ICE, they're there to buy payment processing software, whatever it may be, and then they walk down the other end of Excel and now they're selling. So it's difficult, I think, for them to manage their teams in both sides.
Okay.
I think, look, medium to long term, I think they will converge, but keep their own identities during that process. But right now, I think it's just a good friendship that's growing and nurturing. If I was to imagine.
Okay,
One's just a little bit loud and naughty, the other's a bit more sensible.
We know which one's which, yeah.
I would just add to that in the sense that whilst they crossed over a bit more in April, I guess that was a good test for us, good opportunity, but that was more facilitated by the move to April and having, reduction in space and time, etc. But I think paying homage to everything Alex has said, one thing we've done for February next year is make that registration process easier. So we know there's a big crossover between two. So rather than having to kind of go through two different processes, it's all much more synced now. So if you are an attendee, you'll find that experience crossing over between the two of them much easier than you did before. So that there is still our aim to make them work seamlessly together rather than sit separate.
Okay. One of the changes that you brought in and fairly recently is that you've appointed an event manager. So Andy Ventris has joined you. I just wondered, what does he bring to ICE, and what was we haven't seen anybody apart from you two figures for a while now running everything. What's he been tasked with, and what does he bring into the show? Because he used to be was it the book fair that he was previously working for? Organizing.
Yeah, he was. So and Andy's got big trade show experience, obviously most recently in the publishing sector. So and weirdly enough, when we were having conversations about him joining the team, he was going through a very similar process that we were with ICE in terms of Omicron and postponements and dealing with obviously a challenging kind of fallback from customers, etc. So we often spoke to each other, probably for a bit of counselling, to be fair, through that challenging period. But Andy's got big trade show experience. His background outside of running events is marketing, and I think we are very much a marketing-led business in terms of looking at those customer groups, looking at the kind of strategy around customer acquisition and bringing more buyers in. So Andy brings a lot of that to strengthen the team. And I think the timing has been sort of perfect. Obviously, getting him in just after the April show, as soon as we could, and start to sort of really boost up the team again in terms of skill level and resource, just to make sure that we can land what obviously we've been saying is going to be the biggest version of ICE ever. So he brings a huge amount of skills, certainly in terms of kind of helping us deliver that strategy around acquiring those audiences back, really. So so yeah, that's his focus. And then over time, obviously, he's looking at more areas where things like pitch ICE, that kind of startup element of ICE has been something that we've seen a real opportunity in. So there's certain projects he's grabbing hold of, and we can push forward. But no, he's been a great addition to the team, and he's really excited to kind of get the next ICE over the line in February.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of times so far, the biggest ICE ever, the biggest ICE event on record. What are the indicators that you're seeing that's going to be the case? obviously you're confirming that all the brands are back, and I just want to kind of reiterate that to the audience that all the big brands are going to be back this year, and it's going to be, I think you mentioned full scale at one point in one of the announcements, that it's a full scale ICE. Is there a danger that ICE is actually getting too big at the same time in terms of the way it's organized, and it in terms of how you manage it and pull it all together? Is that something that you feel the weight of as well, when there's lots of other things that are happening in the background in terms of questions about the size and scale and where potentially the show can be actually placed and located? So are those, on one side you've got record breaking, on the other side the actual management and size of the show? Do you feel that, and do you feel that this 2023 is going to be a show that defines what ICE can actually be as it goes on to the next kind of decades worth of actual shows?
I think that where it defines, I love the tagline, and from the wonderful Chris Jones at Scott and Jones, little plug for him, but that stronger together, for me, what the size and scale and the feeling and buzz and emotion that when people come on site will be, that actually this is what we are as an industry when we come together. We are this powerful beast that's been unleashed from captivity for the last few years. So I think that aside, though, but yeah, look, the size of a trade show is a worry and something that is constantly monitored with any show, and there's not that many globally of ICE's size, and you have to balance it so carefully and across, like, enough buyers for the sellers. Enough visitors per square meters. I remember a few years ago when ICE widened its aisles quite wide, and even though they had more people there as an exhibitor at the time, I felt like there wasn't many, but it's because of the design. It was things like the balance of, as Stu mentioned earlier, online versus land-based, or sports betting versus payments. Like, I think that is it's a bit of a magician's act, and you're constantly got these gigantic floor plans printed out that people are colouring in and monitoring, and actually you have to be careful not to sell too much or get too greedy. So and at points sometimes actually that's as big as the event or the industry can sustain as an event, and you then have to not sell any more space, otherwise it just doesn't become a good customer experience. And I think the other thing is, actually within a bigger show, and that's the bit I get quite interested in, is how you can create a more personal element to the show, which is slightly odd when you're talking 30 plus 40 plus thousand people on a floor, but it's around actually how do you bring everyone in a certain segment, I don't like the LATAM drinks we do, or how do you put the regulators in their own conference and then give them their own networking, or matching, using hosted buyers to match buyers and sellers together, or the things like the consumer protection zone. All those small elements bring those niche communities together, and actually you then still run into your old friends and don't suddenly think, God, I was walking that floor for 3 days, how did I not find you? And I think that's the bit where, if we can get right, then it becomes a really personal experience instead of this gigantic mega event.
At G2E, every land-based exhibitor, particularly European exhibitor that we ran into, they were talking about what happened to the ICE show, and were asking us the question of what happens to the ICE show beyond 2023, into 2024, 2025. Are you giving any defensive answers as yet? Have you internally decided what you're thinking about I know beyond this, it's very difficult to think beyond 2023 at this point, because you still, this is your big focus. But the questions are being asked. Have you come up with anything yourselves as to what you're doing next?
Yeah, and there's no secret that we've said it on your podcast and in various other things over the last couple of years, that we will always listen to the market and we'll react. And there's a project going on that's looking at alternative cities. And that process is really, to be fair, I didn't think it was as challenging as it is until I started it, because there is, within Clarion, and we're the third biggest event company in the world, we've never moved an event of this size in the 100 years we've been running that business, or 80 years, or whatever it is. So it's a lot to learn, and it's difficult. But yeah, in terms of years, what we can say is it will be in London in 23. Obviously, that's going to be a shocker. It will definitely be in London in 24, because moving a show like this, you cannot do it well, now what are we, 14, 15 months? I talk to suppliers. They're booking their hotels already for 24. They're booking their suppliers for 24. So if it does move, it will be 2025 at the earliest.
Okay.
So you need a good 18-month run up for that, I think.
And you mentioned that Clarion hasn't. Is there a precedent out there for a show that has actually this kind of scale moved and done it successfully? Is there something out there that you can model it on?
Yeah, there's a few, but not many. And so probably the biggest on my mind, Stuart may more, is Mobile World Congress, who went from, I think they were in Nice or Cannes, I can't remember, but they sold out the entire city, outdoor ads, everything, and they had to move, and they moved to Barcelona. But again, that was and if anyone's ever, that's one of the biggest shows in Europe now.
Right. Okay.
And they dominate that city when they go. So look, it's not impossible. And there's, we've talked about it so many times, and I'll bore you with.
Well, okay. So, cutting through it, which comes to kind of a bit about what's going to convince the kind of pro movers about the decision that whatever you take is going to be the right one. Is it statistics? Is it case studies? Is it trial events? Your stakeholder engagement programs? And how far do you go to appease these voices as well?
I think it's a combination. First of all, I don't think we can please everyone. If we could, it would be a dream, but in life I've never managed to be able to do that yet. But look, I think the way we're trying to approach it is from the customer mindset. So for me, if we do that in the right way and we're making decisions based on feedback and then testing those decisions, then I believe the majority of customers will support whatever that final decision is, and they'll come on that journey, because we're only making the decision because the market would like us to make that decision, rather than we want to go out to Mongolia because it's £50,000 cheaper. So I think when we get there, they will support us. Not everyone will, and I think it'll be. Look, I remember when ICE moved to Excel, I was one of the antis. I was like, oh my god, I love the pub right outside. I can't remember the name of, but I love being in central London and all those things. I hadn't been to Excel in ever. Why would I? But actually, do you know what? It was the right decision for the event. The right people supported it on that journey, and it had a huge amount of growth following that decision. And that was again made, look, before my time. I wasn't working here at the time, but it was made with the market, and certainly I felt included in that decision when I was at iGaming Business.
And I know Stuart presented at the ECA forum about the same thing, but how big for our listeners who aren't interested in the London transport infrastructure, how big a deal is the Elizabeth line for the show and for booking and moving around London as well?
Well, look, I think it's just some icing on the cake, definitely, for the 23 show, for sure. Okay. And I guess any UK listeners will know that how long this piece of infrastructure has been in the planning for, and how over budget it's been. But I'm pleased to say it is a great addition to Excel. It certainly opened it up. And Alex talking about when ICE moved from Earl's Court to Excel, the big bugbear, which I think has probably still stayed with Excel as a disadvantage, has been the fact that it's been on this kind of considered not to be central London and a bit sort of out on a whim, and the transport there has been a bit convoluted and a bit challenging and all those things. But the Elizabeth line is a game changer. I hate to sort of use that as a bit of a statement, but I've been in it many times now, and it really is. I think it will just make the whole process of arriving into Excel. If you are traveling internationally, coming from Heathrow, you can just jump on one train now, and it goes all the way through to Excel. It's about 40 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
No hopping off tubes, going down stairs, etc. It's one tube, one train all the way through. Similarly, if you are, if you want to stay in central London now and not on campus, which in many respects will get you a nicer hotel at a cheaper rate, you can nip into central London from Excel now in between 12 and 15 minutes, depending on where you want to go. So it goes straight through to Custom House, which is the main station at Excel. So you can walk out, jump on. All the trains are huge. Capacity is I can't even compare to the DLR really. It's probably 10 times capacity. Fully air conditioned.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, fully air conditioned. Not that you probably need that in February, to be fair, but it's a nice perk in the summer. But yeah, the stations are immaculate. It's just a real boost for London. Absolutely, it's a boost for Excel, and I think all the trade shows that have taken place since Elizabeth Line launched at XL have all given great feedback that it's sort of been a bit of a game changer. So look, we're excited absolutely for it to be that kind of icing on the cake for the Feb shows. But it will make a big difference.
And even better, it's purple. So
it is. It's ice branded purple.
Yeah, coincidental, obviously. No involvement. Will having a great London show this time, do you think that will actually, quash the kind of the fears that people have about moving the show, or the kind of calls that people are having? Do you think putting this one as the biggest show ever, everyone comes to London, everyone has a great time? Do you think that will put to bed the kind of the argument? Or I know you've not committed to moving the show, but you're committed to having a discussion about moving the show. That's the kind of the point of difference here. But do you think that this will actually mean that argument kind of quietens off and becomes irrelevant, or are you still committed to actually addressing it going into 2025 by the sound of things?
I personally don't think it will make a difference, only because the 2020 show was actually brilliant. Like, it was really good, and 2021, although it was a different version of Ice, it was also really good, and people were very surprised. And I mean, whether you use social media or our customer surveys afterwards, it was a really good show. And I think the decision is more about the future of Ice, and what does that future look like in the longer term. And it's been, I mean, in one shape or form or another, got my show guys back from 1936 down there. It's been there for a long time. So when you make a decision like this, you're making a long-term commitment. And I think there's bigger reasons than just having that first show. But I say all that, look, if it turns around and it's amazing and everyone goes, do you know what, Alex, London's great, Brexit was fine, everything's good, then brilliant. We'll all put all those millions of bits of paper and documents and work that we've done for the last 12 months away, and dust it off another time.
Okay. Well, I hope you, in the meantime, both have a great Christmas and New Year, because obviously that's the eye of the storm that you've got coming up over the next couple of months. Good luck with all the traveling, all of the organization, and everything else that you've got in your bag. Any kind of the big announcements that you've got coming out, we'll look forward to following those as well. Thank you for taking part in the podcast again. And maybe we can encourage Andy to jump on before the show kind of kicks off, maybe in January, just to get his views and how things are going as his first one as well, and welcome him to the party.
You can ask him the hard question.
I've tried with you guys today, honestly, but thank you for answering everything that was put in front of you as well. Appreciate it.
It's always so good to speak to you, and genuinely, and I'm looking forward to watching this back and cowering in the corner listening to my voice.
Likewise, Lewis. You have a great Christmas as well. But obviously, you know where we are.
Oh, we'll be in touch lots in between then, and we'll catch you again. Right, thank you very much.
If you can say one thing, if you want to boost your presence at ICE, make sure you're advertising in G3. It's an amazing magazine.
We'll take that as our one and only testimonial for the year. Thank you very much, Alex, and speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye.